Kazuma Sadu, a seemingly ordinary boy, found himself unexpectedly reincarnated into another world in a manner so absurd, it could only be described as laughable. Tasked with the quest of vanquishing the Demon King, he was granted a companion to aid him on his journey, a goddess of remarkable uselessness. Though initially perceived as a gift, he quickly realizes that having such a companion might not be as great as he hoped for. As Kazuma navigates through this new world, he finds himself contending not only with the daunting challenge of defeating the Demon King, but also with the questionable goddess companion and his fellow useless party members. In the midst of these trials, one can't help but ponder, how did such a seemingly useless girl ascend to the divine status of a goddess? Kazuma Sadu is a quiet high school student who recently pulled 2 all-nighters and then decided to go out on a bright sunny early morning just to buy a game on sale. Well, bad idea. While holding a DVD as if it's his life, he staggers back home feeling dizzy and lightheaded. He looks back to see his schoolmate walking mindlessly on a phone as a truck approaches her. Even though he cannot see very clearly and lacks the energy to handle his own body, he still rushes heroically to save the girl from getting hit by the truck. Wondering why he chose to do something so out of his persona, Kazuma slowly loses consciousness. When he opens them back, he finds himself in a space with a chair in front of the one he is sitting at. A girl walks up to him, referring to herself as Goddess Aqua and revealing to Kazuma that he has unfortunately passed away moments ago. Acting mature over his life ending, Kazuma inquires about the girl he pushes. Aqua tells him the girl is alive, making Kazuma feel content and proud that his death wasn't in vain. Well, a short-lived pride that was. Aqua tells Kazuma that the girl wasn't gonna die either way, as the tractor would have stopped before reaching her. Now, this is not that embarrassing, but Kazuma vividly remembered it being a truck. Turns out a tractor was coming from the side too. Now, Kazuma would assume a tractor plowed in, but that's where a series of exponential embarrassments begins for him. In reality, Kazuma died of shock. Neither was he run over by a truck or a tractor. He just assumed he got run over and peed his pants and died of shock. Moreover, strangers, doctors, and even his family members laughed over the cause of his death. Well, at least he has a memorable note for his family. To make matters even worse, even a god was laughing at him. After feeling her sadistic joy, Aqua says her job is to guide the souls of the young demises to the afterlife. Showing her sadistic nature yet again, Aqua starts manipulating him that heaven is going to be boring with no TV, internet, or even gaming. Poor Kazuma is flustered trying to take all the information in when Aqua mentions how he likes games, so he should enter another world to defeat monsters and Demon King army to free the tortured lives of the villagers. You know, because for some reason every adventurer has some type of beef with the Demon King. After a convincing performance about how he can be a hero, she tells him he will have his previous memories retained and will get to choose a powerful weapon or a tremendous power. A manual about the world and the language will also be fed to Kazuma's brain before he goes there. But Aqua kinda just pushes aside the fact that there may be a 50% chance he will be erased from existence if the knowledge overwhelms him. Kazuma, starting to doubt the goddess' intelligence, decides to look for what power or weapon he should take. Aqua makes fun of him for taking so long since he's a shut-in introverted gaming meat, like yourself. Offended by her words, Kazuma decides to be a menace and chooses the goddess herself as the thing he'd take with him. Before Aqua can process what he just said, another goddess appears, granting Kazuma his wish, and taking charge of Aqua's job for the time being. Aqua whines about how she has no knowledge to defeat the Demon King and cries while Kazuma laughs evilly, feeling happy seeing the girl in misery. Man, with his weird revenge, he doesn't even realize he acquired a useless special power. In the town, Aqua sulks while Kazuma is happy to start a new life opposite to his shut-in past life. He tells Aqua they need to find a guild, become an adventurer, and find a place to sleep, while Aqua wonders how this introverted guy has gotten so responsible and confident out of nowhere. She leads to stop insulting the source of their going back. Walking about, they reach the guild and try to register, only to realize they weren't provided with a single penny to survive in this world. Asking the goddess for some spare change, she replies that she is also broke, and Kazuma is already slowly regretting the decision he made. The two of them sit gloomily on the table when Aqua decides to try and have a religious old man believe she is the wonderful goddess Aqua. The old man turns out to be the believer of her subordinate, but gives her money assuming Aqua is the subordinate goddess of his god. Embarrassed and deeply hurt, Aqua walks back feeling disgraced over her existence, and starting to doubt if she's a goddess myself. The two of them finally register when asked to get their stats checked. Kazuma assumes he is going to have the best stats and the whole guild will cheer for him. But all his stats are below average other than intelligence and luck. Although, as you can see, that luck isn't going so well. On the contrary, Aqua has exceptional skills other that ordinary people wouldn't have. When Aqua is told she can be any kind of adventurer while Kazuma only gets the beginner card, she chooses to be an archpriest that has healing magic and a good amount of strength. In minutes, the whole guild cheers just like Kazuma anticipated. But too bad it is for Kazuma's arch-nemesis. Having registered, the two of them are ready to defeat some monsters and go on adventures. Well, if you count those adventures to be showering, partying at night, having fun till Aqua pukes, and sleeping in a stable, then yeah. And this loop goes on for days till Kazuma realizes their mission is to defeat the Demon King. After all that BS Aqua was talking about, he noticed they haven't gotten nowhere. And at this rate it seems like they are settled to grow old and die just like this. But surprisingly there is some intelligence in Kazuma. Since there aren't many monsters around the village, they don't get many hunting quests. But Aqua tells Kazuma that they should search and hunt for some monsters. After convincing him that she is capable of everything as a goddess and he can rely on her, Aqua loses balance and falls into the fountain. Yep, relying on this goddess is gonna be the worst mistake of his life. Kazuma stands in the small space of the stable in an existential crisis while watching Aqua drool the life out of her sleep. Aqua is having the sleep of her life on hay and Kazuma is questioning his life, wondering what was so intriguing in the profession of an adventurer, as they are nothing but part-time job doers for the town. Neither do they get enough money or a place to stay. They just survive on whatever by doing odd jobs. Equals like our exes. Aqua wakes up from her slumber wishing Kazuma morning as if it isn't evening already. Kazuma controls his series of mockery about how Aqua keeps saying to count on her, but she seems the most unreliable person on the face of this world. He then tells her the town seems pretty peaceful. What Demon King army do they need to get peace back from? When Kazuma says his neighbor is the only monster in the vicinity of this town, it is believable as the moment the two get a little lively. He slams the wall, shutting them up. Yep, by neighbor we mean the person living in the adjacent stable. That's the only stability these adventurers are getting in life though. The quest they get is to eliminate 5 giant toads who attack the farmer's goats in mating season. As Kazuma is running frantically with a toad, he begs Aqua to help him while she expresses her amusement and keeps laughing, telling Kazuma to talk to her nicely and consider her might and whatnot. Too lost in the mockery, she fails to notice the toad changed its target from Kazuma to herself. So currently, the powerful goddess is upside down in the mouth of a giant toad. Kazuma is relieved that the toads don't move while eating because that's how he knocked it out. The slimy and stinky goddess cries and jumps to hug Kazuma to save her, while Kazuma tries to let it go so she can let him go because she stinks. While Aqua gives an emotional speech about her dignity being lost, Kazuma gets an internal monologue about how Aqua has been living the past few days, and that is very much against the image she is trying to build. His inner fun makes him fail to notice when Aqua runs towards a monster, lighting her fist in a godly blow. But the moment the punch touches the frog, it turns out to be useless. So once again, Kazuma is running to get his useless goddess out of the frog's mouth. And in this way, the two of them manage to hunt down 2 toads out of 5. At dinner, Kazuma is sad at the small amount of money received, while Aqua tells him they should make a party by inviting advanced members. Now her confidence is very amusing, not only with the fact that some newbies want advanced magic users, but because the recruitment announcement was just a bunch of self-praising and bragging by Aqua. However, before the two are completely dejected, a young girl, Megumin, walks up to them, revealing in an extremely dramatic way that she is an archwizard with advanced skills. Tiny Megumin tries to brag about her skills and intimidate them, but they look unamused. Moreover, it doesn't work well on your image if you pass out from hunger surviving for 3 days. Aqua happily invites Megumin to the party, and the next day, Megumin is making her explosion attack while Aqua is once again in a toad's mouth. Kazuma is impressed by the explosion, but this awakens another toad that simply walks up to an exhausted Megumin from her big magic, and tries to swallow it yet again. Kazuma carries Megumin as the 3 walk, while another thing he carries on his shoulders is the realization that both women are equally useless. They try to make Megumin learn another magic, but the explosion spell is her passion, and since no one wants her, the ones who accidentally accepted her are now having her stuck to them like a leech. Even though Kazuma's stats improved by this unusual fight, he still sits depressed, realizing splitting the money 3-way is another loss. His depressive thought process is disturbed by darkness. No, he didn't pass out, but a beautiful knight named Dark-Ass approaches him asking about his recruitment poster. Her intimidating aura flips in the next moment, begging Kazuma to hire her in the party. Seems like interesting personalities have finally started surrounding Kazuma's boring reincarnated life. Darkness seems to be a dark personality, not someone with a grave, traumatizing past, but someone with an interest in dark romance and sadism to herself. Introducing herself as a crusader, she doesn't beat around the bush when she confidently announces her skill. However, she should have hesitated since the skill is never hitting her mark and all she can serve is as a human shield to Kazuma whenever he needs it. Even though Kazuma finds her beautiful, he still gets the vibe that she is no better than Aqua or Megumin, so rightly he tries to politely decline her application request. Well, only if the girl was capable of getting signals. The next day, Kazuma walks up to the guild and finds Aqua using her nature's beauty skill to give an entertaining performance to adventurers. She is more of a people-pleasing clown than a goddess though. Sitting with Megumin, he thinks about learning some skill with the points he has saved up. He tries for the explosion skill, but the explosion of excitement by Megumin and her thoughts of considering Kazuma a pervert when he offered money for it makes him think otherwise. Darkness walks up to him wanting to continue last night's conversation. Kazuma tries to reject her directly this time but finds her turned on about that. Chris, a thief, walks up to Darkness calling her out for being so pushy. A good honest friend Chris is. Chris then offers to teach Kazuma the stealing skill as it consumes fewer points and is a nice one. Kazuma gets excited and agrees right away. Chris shows him how to steal by stealing his wallet and knows she doesn't run away with it like a normal thief would. She gives a friendly challenge to Kazuma to learn the skill and steal his belongings back. Wanting to feel the thrill of a challenge and an adventure, he agrees, by acquiring the skill and using it for the first time. We see Chris standing with a tomato face while Kazuma celebrates hitting a jackpot, the jackpot being a panty. As Chris whines, Darkness feels attracted to Kazuma. It feels like the adventures she seeks are a different genre than others. Kazuma then goes to show Aqua and Megumin his stealing skill, but another random steal spell makes him grab the panties of Megumin. With every passing day, the townspeople must be getting convinced that Kazuma is a pervert. Sitting together, Kazuma tries to make Megumin and Darkness leave by telling them about their plan to defeat the Demon King, but this gets them even more excited. Let's not mention Darkness expecting an erotic fantasy for her fate as a knight in the hands of the Demon King. A sudden emergency to gather all the adventurers at the gate of town makes Kazuma wonder what attack this is about since others seem to know about it and are taking all precautionary measures. It seems like Kazuma is finally going to fight some serious monsters. Yes, by serious we mean everyone gathered to defeat cute flying cabbages that have been harvested. Yes, cabbages are here and smack the people who try to eat them. Darkness tries to impress Kazuma but all her attacks are missed, just as she mentioned. She then proceeds to act as a shield to some injured adventurers, enjoying the fact that people are watching her being stripped off by the impact of flying cabbages. Why are they actually getting beaten by some cabbages? And how can Megumin leave without expressing the love of her life, an explosion? With this, everyone enjoys Cabbage Delight in the evening with the four of them having performed hard work to earn those. Eventually, Darkness manages to convince Kazuma to let her join his party, more like ignoring his attempts to decline her insistence. Darkness flaunts her new armor to an unimpressed Kazuma who is worried about the perverted relationship Megumin has with her staff. It seems like the town is rich in hormones. Meanwhile, Aqua is currently whining that she captured cheap lettuce instead of cabbages and didn't get much money. Kazuma feels even more annoyed knowing that Aqua's change of direction towards them means she is up to something linked to him. She sweetly asks how much Kazuma got for his cabbage hunt and then the three of them were collectively left in shock upon hearing he got $1 million. Turns out his luck was factored in since he captured all cabbages with good XPs. Aqua tries to flirt her way into having him give her some money but then moves quickly to begging since she thinks she is gonna be rich and spend all the money she has. Currently, she needs to pay a debt, but Kazuma doesn't care. Not having her way, Aqua resorts to emotional blackmailing by reminding Kazuma of his nighttime shenanigans in the shared stable. After paying the debt with her hard-earned money, Aqua tells them they should go on a kill quest since she doesn't even have lunch money. However, the quest related to toads makes Aqua and Megumin cry, whine, squirm, and whatnot in fear of reliving their trauma. Meanwhile, Darkness seems to be getting excited upon thinking about slime on her body. Somebody give this woman some holy water. The four of them try to look for decent quests but the presence of the Demon King's vassal in the vicinity of the town has caused the monsters to disappear, leaving no kill quests for them. Megumin takes Kazuma with her to practice her magic outside the town since she needs someone to carry her exhausted self back home. Finding an abandoned castle, she decides to use the magic on it. This becomes their thing to do every day where Kazuma even rates the explosion every day and gets to closely analyze the details of her spell. Might help him if he earns enough points to learn it. Kazuma tells Aqua that they should either give up on defeating the Demon King or she should be useful by either sealing the Demon King since Kazuma becomes strong enough or by teaching him her healing skills. Seems like Aqua is aware that her healing skills make up her entire identity, which is why she intends to gatekeep it. However, Kazuma's words make her cry even the next day in front of the other two girls. Of course, Darkness would want it directed her way. The adventurers are once again alarmed to gather outside town. While we expect to see yet another flying vegetable, what we get is the Demon King's vassal standing up front, introducing himself with thunder roaring behind on cue. He couldn't hide his frustration about someone exploding his castle every day since he moved there. Turns out the abandoned castle was not so abandoned. While people wonder who it could be, Megumin herself walks ahead. Now, instead of being a nice little girl, she seems to be wanting to mess around with the lives of the surrounding people as well. He asks her to stop, but she refuses, for no specific reason. It was a random spot. Megumin, let it go. Aqua also jumps forward, making the knight laugh at an archpriest thinking she could defeat him. He decides to curse Megumin to die after 7 days, but why would she get hurt when they hired a human shield for themselves? Darkness takes the blow, but it seems like the poor knight is getting cursed in return when he starts hearing the traumatizing fantasies of darkness. She even tries to go to the castle with him while he staggers back, not wanting her to. Kazuma has to hold Darkness back, not to save her but to save the knight from her perverted ideas. The knight leaves, telling Megumin to find her way to the castle to save her friend. Megumin decides to go and Kazuma decides to tag along. Their enthusiasm, however, dies down when Aqua casually uses her healing ability to lift the curse from Darkness. Once again, all the people cheer for Aqua stealing the spotlight from the other three who are ready to face the Demon King's vessel head-on. Every morning, Kazuma stares at a sleeping goddess, only she looks at someone far from the goddess while sleeping mindlessly with a funny pose and drool coming out of her mouth. More like he glares at her for being useless and making them live peasant lives while he aims to be the chosen hero in this world. In the guild, Aqua begs Kazuma that they should go on a quest since she is living in debt and doesn't want to work in the market anymore to pay it off. Kazuma finds her selfish and internally annoyed but decides to simply tell her his savings are also near to ending so they can get a quest. You know it's bad when even a god is broke in this economy. Darkness turns towards Kazuma as Aqua leaves, reminding him to not trust Aqua in choosing the quest or they might end up in a troublesome situation. Meanwhile, Aqua picks up a pamphlet about killing a manticore in aggression. Kazuma snatches it from her, realizing his choice was right to keep a sight on her. Talk about an untrustworthy goddess. Finally, Aqua chooses a fairly easier quest with higher pay. They are supposed to purify a lake so the alligator monsters in the impure lake leave. Kazuma doubts if she can do it safely, but Aqua reminds him to notice her specialty in her name and her appearance. Pretty sure all Kazuma sees is narcissism and self-obsession, so Aqua tells him that her name means water and her eyes, hair, and clothes are all blue. Her specialty is water and she can purify it just by touching it. Kazuma wants her to go on her own and enjoy the reward in this case, but Aqua wants him to protect her while she does it in about half a day. So now, we see Kazuma with $1 million idea where he doesn't have to risk his life so Aqua can pay her debt. He put Aqua in a strong cage and tied the rope attached to it to a huge rock outside the lake, making her sit in a safe space and purify the water. Meanwhile, the other three watch from afar, discussing how lame Aqua and Megumin sound by saying they don't go to the washroom. By Megumin jinxing it, the alligators pop out of nowhere and start attacking in cage. Now, Aqua doesn't want to let go of the reward and Kazuma isn't interested in helping her at the stake of his life, so the proud goddess who was previously purifying the water just now is mentally losing it, trying to survive. After a little crying, a depressive episode occurs for Aqua where she refuses to get out of the cage, finding it safe in there. She keeps singing weird songs as the others take her back when a guy named Kyoya, who was sent as the chosen hero with his cursed grand sword to this world by Aqua. He tries to save Aqua by getting her out of the cage and arguing with an unbothered Kazuma. Aqua finally realizes she is a goddess and is back to her lively mood. Kyoya decides to challenge Kazuma to a duel for the sake of Aqua. Kazuma, being the person he is, launches right away, simply uses his stealing skill to steal the grand sword, knocking him out with it. The girl that were with him calls him a coward, but I'm pretty sure a guy with a magic sword, and 20 times stronger than an average person, is the real coward. Kazuma tells the girls if they don't shut up he's gonna use steel on them next, in the worst possible way. The hero later turns up at the guild wanting Aqua to join his party, but Aqua since the damage to the cage to get her out cost her more than half of the reward money. Kyoya pays her the repair cost and runs away whining when told his sword was sold. Everyone is once again called to the town gate as the Demon King's vassal appears yet again, this time whining about why they didn't visit him. He seems more of a princess than a monster when it comes to tantrums. We finally get to know the name of the vassal. Vertier rants about how the explosions still haven't stopped, which confuses Kazuma until he looks back at Megumin looking ashamed. She confesses she couldn't get the same feeling as hitting something rock solid again, so had to do that. Who else could be her accomplice other than careless Aqua? Verdia once again starts insulting them for being reckless and not even respecting the death of their knight companion nor fearing him after that curse. Poor Verdia had no idea that he had been insulting himself. He gets confused when Darkness walks in front while Aqua starts mocking him. Verdia prepares to attack Aqua, but she uses purifying magic on her. Aqua worries and turns to Kazuma that it isn't working, but Kazuma is sure that he heard the painful whining of Verdia, meaning he was affected. This is done twice, so Verdia decides to use his dead army to attack the town. Kazuma and Aqua look down upon him for not fighting on his own. The spirits start chasing Aqua, probably because she is a goddess, so Kazuma guides her into luring the spirits near Verdia, and then having Megumin cause an explosion there. The town cheers for Megumin, although it includes how little they thought of her capabilities. Verdia gets up from the explosion and decides to fight them on their own. Some adventurers step up but end up getting melee-mopped by Verdia in one blow. This angers Darkness as she comes forward to take more of Verdia's attacks while she keeps missing even the simplest of aims towards Verdia. Ironically, all this is being done to stall Verdia till the ace in the hole, the useless hero, reaches the town. Too bad he won't be having his sword even if he reaches, since a certain someone sold it. Kazuma uses his water creating skill to not have Darkness hurt more, but his steel skill doesn't work on Verdia. As Darkness is close to getting slaughtered, Kazuma thinks hard and realizes Verdia's weakness is water. Aqua doesn't understand what's happening, which makes Kazuma call her an idiot and useless in anger. Deeply offended, she decides to show her skills to him and ends up flooding the entire area, which not only weakens Verdia, but also damages the town's walls. However, this works in their favor as Kazuma manages to steal the head of Verdia and play soccer with it in his weakened state until Aqua yet again uses the purifying skill and succeeds. The town goes into celebration, this time finally acknowledging Kazuma. The party even gets 300 million as a reward. Too bad the penalty for destroying the town walls is 340 million. Aqua's bad luck seems to be influencing the others too. Aqua dares to whine about not being treated well by Kazuma when she is the reason they end up losing all their quest money. Moreover, she keeps her stubborn bratty attitude till Kazuma almost kicks her out of the party to be on her own. Megumin and Darkness walk there, deciding it is what it is and they should focus on finding a new quest to get them through the winters without freezing to death. After searching through the quests, all four agree to go hunt the snow sprites. As the more sprites are hunted, the earlier spring will come. Although Kazuma is a little suspicious of the girls agreeing without any dramatics, he ignores it for the sake of money. Reaching out, they start hunting the cute innocent snow sprites with ease. Megumin suggests using her explosion magic, which gets her level increased with a few sprites killed in her name. Kazuma is praising her when a commotion is heard. As it turns out, the girls intentionally hid from Kazuma that the Winter General is a strong icy knight that appears during the winter, which is why people don't take this quest. Megumin smoothly planned everything as after the explosion, she continued to lie face down on the ground pretending to be dead. Darkness came prepared as she didn't wear any armor, wanting to be violated by the general. Aqua, the questionable goddess, is currently bowing down on the ground pretending to be giving in to the Winter General. Talk about selective arrogance. Wanting Darkness safe, Kazuma pushes her head to the ground, but a delay in putting his sword down gets him beheaded by the Winter General. Kazuma wakes up in the same space as when he died last time, except this time the goddess of this world, Mommy Eris, stands in front of him. She politely mourns his death and wishes him kindness in his next life upon seeing he had a stupid life full of questionable moments. Kazuma is about to be reincarnated back in Japan when Aqua resurrects him by practically bullying Eris into accepting her command. Kazuma wakes up with all the girls surrounding him moments after he realizes he doesn't entirely hate this stupid life and these dumb people. However, his thoughts change by the night when the girls order a feast from the prize money, leaving them back to square one about the winter extremity situation. Aqua tries to burn poor Kazuma's last memory of his previous life, his tracksuit, for the sake of fire, as if she isn't the reason they don't have any money or a decent place to sleep in. Kazuma decides they need some spammable skill to use as their primary weapon. Asking Aqua to behave decently, which offends her as if she is a nice person, Kazuma takes her into a cafe. Just like you'd expect, Aqua doesn't even reach the first letter of decency. She straight up goes for the neck of the girl. Turns out, the girl Viz is a lake with a nice soul. She used to ascend the roaming spirits in a cemetery to heaven, but Aqua Madam stole her job and did it there. Still, she dared to get mad at Viz and try to harm her. As Kazuma asks Viz to teach her some lick skills, Aqua gets mad as to how a goddess servant can learn a lick skill. Boy, isn't she obnoxious and annoying to call someone who is feeding her her servant. In conversation, Viz tells them she is one of the Demon King's vassals, but her only job is to create a seal around the Demon King's castle, and then live her peaceful life, hence there isn't even a reward in her name. This decides to teach him the Drain Touch skill, which absorbs energy from the opponent. But she needs to demonstrate it on an opponent. The moment Viz touches Aqua, Aqua uses it to try and annihilate the poor innocent Lick. Sometimes Aqua gets unbearable with her unhinged self-obsessed attitude. Later, a man came to Viz asking her to exorcise spirits that keep recurring in his mansion. Kazuma and Aqua take up the job since the man allows them to live in the house in return for as long as they want. Standing in front of the mansion, Aqua starts narrating the backstory of the spirit while the other three walk in and settle. Later, Aqua decides to exorcise spirits because some spirits drank her expensive wine. While Kazuma is sleeping, he turns to find a doll sitting on a rocking chair. He turns to his side in fear only to feel something on the bed. Opening his eyes, he finds a bunch of dolls on his bed staring at him. He runs to Aqua's room as the dolls chase him only to find Megumin there. Both seek Aqua while also wanting time to pee, but the dolls keep chasing them before either of them can unload. It is only until Kazuma decides to fight back. Aqua appears there saving them and also getting knocked down by the door Kazuma opened. Well, Aqua deserves some smack, so whatever. Later, when the two are there to receive rewards, they get to know the spirits that appear in the house because some stupid person created a seal over the cemetery to stop spirits from appearing there. Who else could be such a slacker other than Aqua? Hence, once again they ended up doing a quest with no reward. Walking through the town, Kazuma finds two of his friend adventurers who take him to a place where they can get their dreams fulfilled, dreams that are indecent and unspeakable. Inside the shop, he is given a questionnaire to list his dream woman so that when he sleeps at night, he will see her in his dream doing what he wishes. Excited, he fills out the questionnaire and goes home. On the dinner table, a whole feast is prepared based on crabs because Darkness's family sent it as a housewarming along with some luxurious wine. The crab indeed is very tasty, but Kazuma has to control himself from drinking if he wants to witness that dream. He tries to sleep but cannot do so, which makes him go for a shower. Inside the shower, he dozes off and wakes up to find the lantern gone out and Darkness entering the shower. But Kazuma assumes it is a part of his dream and is on his path to make her do weird stuff till a commotion from outside disturbs him. He rushes out to shut Aqua up in his dream but finds a succubus trapped by Aqua and Megumin. Aqua wants to annihilate it, but Kazuma protects her and tells her to run while he fights the girls. The girls assume he is in the spell of the succubus and beat him up, but the succubus successfully manages to get away. The next day, Darkness talks to him assuming he doesn't remember anything, but he does and embarrasses Darkness, but the banter is disturbed by an announcement about a destroyer approaching the town. As the destroyer approaches, everyone starts going to get the milk like my father. Kazuma gets to know that the machine is an ancient weapon that went berserk and it vanishes everything that comes in its path. Kazuma decides to head to the guild since he wants to protect the town because it took them a lot to finally get a home for themselves. The guild members talk about how the mobile fortress is only an hour away. One of the adventurers wonders if the destroyer was created by magic, then could there be a countermeasure for it? Too bad the creators were wiped out by the destroyer before they could do so. Kazuma wonders if Aqua can use her skills to cast a breaking spell at the destroyer. Aqua mentions that she can try to do so while the other adventurers get intrigued that there is Megumin to back Aqua up by exploding the destroyer. However, Megumin isn't strong enough to do so yet. Fortunately, Viz enters the guild ready to help since she used to be an archwizard before becoming an undead. With a plan set, everyone decides to save the town. Outside the town gate, Kazuma asks Darkness to consider her decision to be a shield this time because this situation is serious. Darkness reveals that she is the daughter of Anyavel whose Fjorden covers this town. This is why she considers it her duty to protect the town in whatever way she can. Kazuma feels kinda proud of her but cannot let go of the fact that her family name is Lalatina. As the destroyer approaches the town, Aqua casts her breaking spell which seems to have worked on the destroyer. This is supposed to be followed by a combined explosion attack by Viz and Megumin, but currently, Megumin is shaking with anxiety and fear. It is only after Kazuma pumps her for being incapable that she straightens up and launches an attack in sync with Viz. The destroyer is damaged and falls right in front of Darkness. People feel happy about the plan working, but the unlucky brat jinxed it by mentioning a celebration out loud. With that, the destroyer is heard activating self-destruction mode. As people start to run away from it, Darkness runs inside the mobile fortress feeling excited and turned on by the impact of the self-explosion on her. Other adventurers, unknown to Darkness's nature, also enter the fortress by being motivated through her actions. Kazuma and Viz also decide to enter the fortress wanting to locate the central controller and stop the destruction. The cowardly goddess tries to run away but Kazuma drags her in with him. Reaching the control room, they find the skeleton and the diary of the creator of this fortress, who wrote the entire diary as if mocking and blaming the creator of the destroyer for thinking of something so dangerous. The diary ends with the person deciding to live inside this destroyer after his town is destroyed and calling the creator of it a retard. Yes, the person called himself a retard in the third person. Rizz wants to teleport the coronadite, but her mana isn't strong enough to know where it will be teleported. So, she asks Kazuma if she can suck it out. And when I tell you, I never seen this man's make a decision so quick with no hesitation. He replies with absolutely, only to get his power sucked in another way than he imagined it. She uses Drain Touch to absorb Kazuma's energy, and then Kazuma asks her to teleport it anywhere since he believes his luck will factor in and not of the coronadite fall in a populous area. After avoiding the self-destruction, the celebration is cut short again by the heat causing the body of the destroyer to heat up and explode. Kazuma decides to absorb the strong mana from Aqua and transfer it into Megumin so she can cause another explosion of the destroyer. So finally, this time the destroyer is actually done and dusted forever. As the town gets back to normal, Kazuma and his party are summoned to the guild. Kazuma is excited, expecting a reward, but the reward is him getting arrested on suspicion of a mass crime. Turns out his exceptionally high luck didn't work and the coronadite obliterated Overlord Aldarp's mansion. Kazuma, the guy destined to be the Demon King, found himself in a bit of a pickle. He'd been reincarnated into another world, and instead of living the dream, he was stuck in a jail cell, pining for good old Japan. And Ursina, the public prosecutor assigned by the kingdom to deal with Kazuma's case. She suspected him of subverting the state, and honestly, his friends weren't helping matters. They were all gathered around him, wearing guilty expressions, like they'd just finished a group apology tour. Sina tells them that Kazuma had teleported a thing called coronadite that went boom in the residence of some lord. No casualties, mind you, but it sure left a mess. Kazuma and his friend blinked at each other, looking innocent as kittens caught in a yarn shop. Now the big question was whether Kazuma was a terrorist or a Demon King's minion. Kazuma, ever the charmer, responded with, "Lady, do you know who you're talking to? I'm the Demon King of the future." Megumi, the loyal sorcerer friend, jumped in to defend Kazuma, claiming that if it weren't for him, the destroyer's battle would have been an all-you-can-eat buffet of casualties. A real best friend right there. But Megumi didn't stop there. She went on to say that Kazuma hadn't committed any real crimes except for some minor infractions, like accidentally blowing up a castle or even taking someone's panties. At this point, Kazuma's being a Demon King's minion is gonna be the least of his concerns. Now, here comes Darkness, the wild card. She decided to vouch for Kazuma, though she couldn't help but mention how he'd never visited her bedside. Kazuma retorted, claiming that she'd been under the succubus's spell and made him do crazy things in the bath. Darkness wasn't having any of it and jumped right into a quarrel. Meanwhile, the others were just standing by, watching the spectacle like it was a soap opera. The crowd, on the other hand, started chanting that Kazuma was innocent and should be set free. Just when it seemed like things couldn't get any worse, the prosecutor threatened to throw anyone who joined Kazuma in prison. The crowd fell silent, and his friends suddenly started acting like they'd been warning him all along not to blow things up. Talk about betrayal. Darkness, in her seductive manner, offered to join Kazuma in prison. But before anyone from the crowd could intervene, Aqua stepped forward. She had something to say but was promptly silenced. Kazuma warned them that if they didn't side with him, his guild friends would. He glanced at them, and they were all looking in different directions, yet another betrayal. And now Kazuma is in prison. But wait, there's hope. An explosion rang out, and there was Aqua at the cell window. She'd created the distraction to save him, but instead of making a clean escape, she just made things messier. She handed him a lockpick pen and a plan to escape to a nearby mansion. Kazuma realized the goddess is even more useless than he thought because the lock was a combination one, and he tossed it away and went to sleep. Aqua waited outside, enduring the cold, and 2 days passed. Another explosion, and there was Aqua again, this time with a hacksaw. Kazuma, wondering how the frick did Aqua even become a goddess because he still couldn't reach the window if he wanted to, and throw that out too. Aqua tries to enter the prison herself, but the guards end up catching her. A few days later, the prosecutor decided to interrogate him with a lie detector. She asked the toughest questions, ones that made Kazuma cry tears of despair. Basically how he was a loser and a shut-in like yourself. At first, he lied, but then a bell rang, and he truthfully spilled his life story, as person behind him recorded everything. As he talked about saving the town, the bell stayed silent, and the prosecutor apologized for buying into rumors. She softened up, and Kazuma saw his chance. He started getting furious with her, but then she got serious again, and Kazuma was back to square one. He attempted to ask if she had a boyfriend, but she quickly got back to business. Kazuma was once again the picture of innocence as she asked him about any connection to the Demon Lord. He denied it, but this time, the bell rang and her eyes narrowed suspiciously. The next day, Kazuma prepared for his execution trial with Aqua, Megumi, and Darkness as his defense. However, they turned out to be more of a problem than a solution. The prosecutor questioned all three testimonies and seemed determined to prove him guilty. Just when things looked bleak, Kazuma saw an opening and declared his innocence, causing confusion as the bell failed to ring. The prosecutor's case crumbled, but the Lord intervened, threatening the judge. Darkness stepped in, revealing her Dustiness family crest and offered to handle the trial herself. She promised to prove Kazuma innocent and, if she lost, to do anything for the Lord. The pervert lord's hopes soared upon seeing her seductive body, and the crowd began chanting in Kazuma's favor. The judge tried to silence them, but they wouldn't listen. In a fit of rage, he hurled his hammer at the crowd, achieving a perfect headshot on himself. Kazuma's trial got postponed again, and he returned to his mansion, fired up for his second chapter. But as luck would have it, the army arrived at his doorstep to seize all his assets to clear his debts. Kazuma watched as everything he owned was carted away. He ended up sleeping on the floor, tears streaming down his face, contemplating the not-so-promising start of his second chapter. Kazuma and Aqua were making a ruckus, imagining Darkness sacrificing herself to that pervert lord. Meanwhile, Megumi returned with a black cat she called Chamisuke, which Kazuma could pet but turned into a scratching fury for poor Aqua. She asked him what the fuss was all about, and Kazuma decided to put on his best Darkness impression, right in front of the pervert lord. Megumi got worried, and Kazuma instructed them to be nice to Darkness when she returned. As they contemplated Darkness as the victim, the prosecutor arrived at Kazuma's mansion. Megumi's explosion had disturbed the hibernation of a giant toad, and now they were ordered to clean up the mess. The toad was hot on Aqua's heels, and Kazuma was content to spectate. Megumi told them they needed to get stronger, all while half of her body ended up in the toad's mouth. Kazuma tried to save her, but she stopped him because it was too cold outside. Thanks to all her explosions, she had only managed to slow down one toad. As Aqua continued to be chased by the toad, Kazuma aimed his bow at it but failed to inflict any damage. The toad swallowed Aqua, but she was rescued by Kazuma. The prosecutor questioned if this was a regular occurrence, just as three more giant toads hopped their way. Panic ensued as they argued about who should be the decoy this time. As they halted their squabbling, both the prosecutor and Aqua were devoured by the toads. They struggled inside the toads' bellies, with Aqua screaming and the prosecutor moaning, perhaps due to the toads' magical tongues. Just when things seemed hopeless, another girl arrived and swiftly dispatched all the toads. The girl introduced herself optimistically as Yun-Yun, but we're calling her Yudion from now on. She is an archwizard and master of advanced magic. Megumi told Kazuma about Yunion's presence with a stoic expression. Kazuma introduced himself, and Yunion seemed surprised that he didn't find her name laughable. Kazuma decided to tease Megumi about her even weirder name, which promptly started a quarrel between them. Yunion challenged Megumi to a duel, but she declined, citing the freezing weather. Eventually, after some persistence from Yunion and a little ego baiting, Megumi accepted her challenge, not in magic but in martial arts, where Yunion was skilled. Yunion appreciated Megumi's bravery and recalled a time when Megumi had challenged her to a lunchtime duel. Kazuma couldn't help but stare at Megumi with irony as she justified her lunchtime challenges as a means of survival due to personal circumstances. They assumed fighting stances, but to make things even more weird, Megumi's body glistened with toad slime, which significantly dampened Union's enthusiasm. Union ran, and Megumi chased after her, employing some clever tactics. Returning home, Kazuma decided to take a bath, but Megumi halted him, insisting that ladies should go first. Kazuma, being the gentleman he is, proclaimed his yearning for true gender equality. Even if you're an old hag, or a regular schoolgirl, he will not hesitate to pull a Chris Breezy. A battle of wits and wills ensued outside the bathroom, with Kazuma eventually stripping down to his underpant with a tiny hole in it. Megumi also struggled to undress, and while Kazuma didn't mind taking a bath together, Megumi resisted, at least until Kazuma taunted her enough to agree. As they shared the bath, they discussed Yun-Yun. Just as they were deep in conversation, Aqua returned to the mansion, and the bathroom door was unlocked. Kazuma, lacking the strength to stand, fell to the ground, relieved that he had avoided being labeled a lolicon. However, Megumi had other plans and cracked her knuckles in response to him calling her a loli. Kazuma began to scream for help, but Aqua sat there just calling him a pedo neat. The next day, they visited Wiz's shop to discuss Kazuma's debt. Inside, they encountered Union, who had been waiting for them since morning. Predictably, Union and Megumi started arguing again. Megumi, being limited to explosion magic, declined Yudion's challenge to a magical duel and instead honed her explosion magic skills for faster spell casting. Aqua suggested a magic item to deepen their friendship. The challenge was simple: whoever could activate the crystal would win. As they attempted to activate it, it revealed their most embarrassing memories. Megumi's involved her insatiable appetite, including devouring a bus, while Yudion's showed her lonely childhood. Megumi, mortified, shattered the crystal, and Rizz packed it away as part of their debt. Megumi blamed Union for the mishap and declared that she would pay for it. They called the duel a draw. Union confessed that she wasn't a child anymore, especially since she was in a relationship with Kazuma, where they even bathed together. This revelation shocked Union and the shopkeeper. Kazuma couldn't resist taking a jab at her for attempting to tarnish his reputation further. Union left in tears, admitting defeat, while Megumi recorded another win in her notebook with an evil smile. Despite still being under suspicion, Kazuma's daily routine continued, even on rainy days, stormy days, snowy days, and peaceful evenings. Why he kept at it, he couldn't even say. One day, they found themselves at a bar, stomachs growling. Megumi and Kazuma were bickering about going into a dungeon. Megumi wanted no part of it, declaring herself completely useless both inside and outside dungeons. She couldn't even use her beloved explosion magic. Kazuma, however, had a brilliant idea: she could be the bag carrier. Their side jobs weren't cutting it to clear their debts, but Kazuma had a pamphlet for Keel's dungeon. One of their guild friends mentioned that a new passage had been discovered there, and a large-scale quest was about to escort a survey team. Treasure might be involved, and as soon as the word treasure escaped their lips, another guild member pounced with curiosity. Kazuma bribed him with a coupon, and he scurried away. Finally, they had a shot at some real money, and Kazuma couldn't afford anyone messing it up. For anyone, you can guess who. They arrived outside the dungeon and set up camp, far away from the city. Megumi was contemplating using her explosions freely, but Kazuma reminded her they were going underground. Kazuma took the lead, utilizing his thief skills, enemy detection, lurk ability, and foresight to navigate and avoid potential threats. Aqua followed closely and confided in Kazuma that she had an alter ego as an archpriest. Despite having lost some of her powers among mortals, she still had godlike abilities up her sleeves. As they moved forward, they stumbled upon an empty chest, raising Kazuma's suspicions about Aqua. They eventually reached a secret passage, hearing menacing monster roars echoing through the dungeon. They teased each other about fear, with Aqua telling Kazuma not to think about grabbing her cakes and running away. As they joked about ditching each other in the depths of the dungeon, they heard something approaching. Kazuma gestured for them to hide, but Aqua didn't catch on. Suddenly, a low-level demon gremlin attacked from behind, but they managed to defeat it. Aqua had the power to see in darkness as clearly as in daylight, and this made Kazuma think about if Aqua could see him do stuff at midnight when they were in the shed. As they continued, they encountered a dead skeleton that scared them half to death. Aqua used a magic spell to release the adventurer's trapped soul, mocking Kazuma for being startled by a mere skeleton. He was seriously considering ditching her at this point. They explored various rooms, and as Aqua spotted a treasure chest, she rushed toward it. Kazuma stopped her and threw a rock at the chest, causing a massive mouth to appear from the wall and swallow the rock whole, terrifying them both. Aqua went on a rampage, freeing the souls of undead monsters and turning the dead creatures into corpses, releasing their souls. Kazuma became suspicious of Aqua's actions and confronted her. She sensed something undead still lurking and sniffed around, but couldn't locate it. Suddenly, a magical door appeared, and a corpse began speaking. The corpse claimed to be Keel, an evil wizard who had built the dungeon and kidnapped a noble's daughter. He revealed his backstory, including proposing to the noble's daughter and becoming a lick to protect her. Aqua completed the purification ritual, and Keel thanked her. She told him that when he woke up, he would meet a goddess named Eris with unnaturally large breasts, who would help him reunite with his beloved. Both corpses vanished, and with Keel's treasure in hand, they left the chamber. Aqua then confessed that she had been unknowingly attracting the undead all along. As they argued, a large crowd of undead creatures appeared. Kazuma decided to use his lurking ability to hide behind a pillar, leaving Aqua alone to handle the horde. When they finally returned to the dungeon entrance, Aqua began weeping and confided in Megumi about everything. The two of them started arguing, and they decided to return to the guild to celebrate. Megumi wanted a beer, but Kazuma denied her, claiming she was too young. Inside the guild, everyone was enjoying their drinks. They asked Kazuma to perform his famous trick, and he promptly swiped a girl's panties as she entered the door. Chaos ensued, and Kazuma reveled in his mischief. Union entered the scene, challenging Megumi to a beer drinking contest. Megumi gladly accepted, but just as she was about to pick up her glass, a drunken guild member trying to copy Kazuma's panty stealing technique crashed into her table, spilling all the drinks. Megumi's Megumi's hopes of beer were dashed. Aqua was busy fixing Kazuma's tracksuit, which she had thrown into the fireplace after he punched her hard on the head, leaving her with a comically large lump. Her day had taken a turn for the worse due to her reckless spending on booze, leaving her now starving and teary-eyed. As she turned to Kazuma with tears streaming down her face, she spotted him clutching her precious bubble wine bottle, the one she had hidden under her bed. He had the audacity to suggest selling it for some much-needed cash. This sparked a furious fight over the bottle, but Kazuma didn't stop there. He snatched her goddess raiment, her very identity as a goddess. Aqua begged him to return it, but he remained stubborn. Just as despair seemed to be setting in, darkness returned in formal feminine clothing that left them all bewildered. None of them recognized her at first, but as she began to gesture seductively, the truth slowly dawned on them, and they treated her as if she had fallen victim to some lord's perversity. Aqua enthusiastically leaped forward, hugging darkness and rubbing her face between her ample melons while crying about Kazuma stealing her most intimate possession. Darkness clarified that the Lord hadn't taken liberties with her but instead showed her a photo of the Lord's son, with whom a marriage had been arranged in exchange for leniency during her trial. Her father had agreed to the marriage, but she wanted to prevent it and had come to seek their help. Looking for an advantage, Kazuma surprisingly suggested that she should accept the marriage proposal, which infuriated everyone. If she rejected the proposal, the Lord would become unreasonable, but if she accepted and then ruined it, it might work. As they considered the plan, Darkness couldn't help but feel bad for her old man. The prosecutor suddenly appeared, inquiring whether Kazuma knew anything about the strange monsters outside the town, and he had to go with them. Megumi initially refused but eventually relented, and Kazuma encouraged her to showcase her explosion skills. She agreed and left with them, leaving Kazuma and Aqua to visit Darkness's home. At Darkness's house, she informed her father that she intended to accept the marriage proposal, while Kazuma and Aqua struggled to control their laughter at her formal behavior. Both of them were dressed as a butler and maid, as her father had asked them to take care of her, promising rewards if the meeting went well. While they waited for the guests to arrive, Darkness suddenly dropped her formal facade and began laughing wickedly. She informed her father that she planned to ruin the marriage, but Kazuma intervened by suggesting that she should accept it. Everyone was taken aback by this unexpected twist, as it turned out that her father had come to reject the marriage proposal. Darkness revealed her true intentions, stating that she didn't want to get married even if it meant being disinherited. She expressed a desire for a husband with toxic qualities and even some toxic features like Kazuma or even yourself. Her unconventional demands left them all speechless. She went as far as wanting to be treated like a prostitute, or even worse. When the guests arrived, Darkness was in the middle of speaking, but Kazuma used his freezing magic to throw her off track. Frustrated, she challenged him to a duel in the training ground, but he refused. However, after observing her peculiar behavior, Walder, one of the guests, developed an interest in her and wanted to see her fight. Kazuma reluctantly agreed, and the duel began. Darkness was repeatedly defeated, and Walder, impressed by her perseverance, dropped her sword to show his sympathy. Kazuma then asked her to demonstrate her ruthlessness and depravity, and she obliged, with her behavior growing increasingly bizarre. Walder and Kazuma watched as Darkness put on a spectacle, and Kazuma threatened to take things to even more depraved levels. Darkness continued with her seductive antics, moaning and wiggling her body, which made Walder feel shy and uncomfortable. She even began fantasizing about perverted things entirely on her own, ultimately fainting in a seductive manner. As her father entered with a wine bottle, he was left utterly speechless by the situation. Aqua tried to blame both Kazuma and Darkness for the chaos, and her father, overwhelmed by it all, ordered the execution of both of them. Her father continued to converse with them, while Darkness lay on the sofa. Walder informed her father that if it weren't for Kazuma, he would have married her. Kazuma wanted to confront him, but Aqua held him back. Her father then asked Kazuma to take care of his daughter. As Darkness woke up, she mischievously lied that she was pregnant with Kazuma's child, which hit a nerve with the ultra-pro virgin. Walder, shocked, left while declaring he would speak to his father. Aqua was in disbelief and eager to spread the news, while her father cried tears of joy at the prospect of his first grandchild. As Kazuma attempted to clarify the situation, the prosecutor arrived, asking for him. The chaos was far from over. As the prosecutor grilled Kazuma about the recent monster incidents in the city, both Megumi and Darkness were as clueless as a cat at a dog show. However, Kazuma decided to consult Aqua, and much to his chagrin, he uncovered that the protective circle she'd conjured to purify Keel had inadvertently played matchmaker for the monsters and the city. Frustration bubbled up within him, and he gave Aqua a head punch that turned her noggin into a comically large lump, as if she'd auditioned for a role as a cartoon character. Upon reaching the dungeon's entrance, they were greeted by these pint-sized masked minions. One of those little critters latched onto Aqua's leg, but instead of a heartwarming hug, it exploded like a firework on the 4th of July. Oddly enough, Darkness kept her cool, strutting ahead like she was on a leisurely stroll through a park filled with daisies. Aqua and Megumi decided to stay put, leaving just Kazuma and Darkness to embark on their subterranean adventure. Observing Darkness's behavior, Aqua's mind started wandering into some rather risque territory, earning her the prestigious title of Goddess of Perversion. Inside the dungeon, they encountered these explosive minions, each smaller than a popcorn kernel, but Darkness was gleefully hacking them to bits with her sword. Kazuma was on edge, guarding Aqua's purifying circle like it was the last piece of chocolate cake at a diet convention, knowing it would put another bullseye on his wanted poster. Upon reaching Keel's lair, they stumbled upon a masked man crafting exploding dolls. The masked man introduced himself as Vanir, a bigwig in the Demon King's crew and a Duke of Hell. Kazuma contemplated a tactical retreat, but Darkness, with all the bravado of a knight in shining armor minus the shining part, insisted on facing Vanir head-on. She challenged him with the audacity to take on someone who claimed to outmuscle the Demon King himself. Vanir spilled the beans about his grand plan, harvesting the dark emotions known as darkness from humans, their favorite emotional snack. He got a kick out of creating these emotions and wanted to kick the bucket after constructing a dungeon that would bamboozle adventurers. Inside the chest at the end of this labyrinth, they'd find a message that read, "You lose." His goal? To prank them like an otherworldly joker, and he'd been squirreling away money for this quirky dungeon project. But here's the twist, Aqua's protective circle was his kryptonite. It allowed him to tap into their most embarrassing thoughts, even when they were in full denial mode. Vanir had a strict no-kill policy for humans but was more than happy to pick on Aqua. Darkness couldn't stand for that, so she launched an attack, while Kazuma and Darkness exchanged bewildered glances. Despite taking multiple swings, Darkness couldn't land a punch. When Kazuma tried a sneaky maneuver, he tripped and ended up hugging Vanir by mistake. This curveball gave Darkness an opening to strike. But then, Vanir did a quick magic trick and turned into clay. Just when they thought the show was over, Vanir's mask latched onto Darkness's face, attempting to puppeteer her. As Darkness resisted, Vanir was seriously impressed by her determination. Meanwhile, Kazuma sneaked into the chamber and deleted the circle while eavesdropping on their conversation. But somehow Darkness seemed to be turned on by the pain Vanir was inflicting on her. When Kazuma emerged from the chamber, Darkness pointed her sword at him, but she was still in a tussle with Vanir's mental grip. Vanir got tired of playing puppeteer and wished he'd never started. As they left the chamber for Aqua to purify Darkness and exorcise Vanir, he gave Kazuma a warning. Darkness would be in for some serious agony. Much to his bewilderment, Darkness appeared to relish it. With full control over her, Vanir took a step forward. Outside, Vanir confronted Aqua with the promise of unimaginable suffering. She begged Kazuma for help, and he decided to stir the pot by taunting Darkness, who was still putting up a valiant fight. As Kazuma prepped his seal magic, Darkness revealed her ace in the hole. She challenged Vanir to a game, offering something utterly absurd if she won. This piqued Vanir's curiosity. Finally, Darkness was ready to roll the dice. She launched an attack on the mask, trying to light it up like a Christmas tree, but it didn't budge. Darkness shifted gears and asked Aqua to go all in with an attack. When that didn't cut it, she summoned Megumi to use her explosion magic, like a dynamite-powered wake-up call. Darkness gave Vanir two options, purification or saying goodbye to this world. To their astonishment, Vanir eagerly chose the latter, having had his fill of the darkness experience. Kazuma gave the green light to Megumi, and the prosecutor, who had been watching like a hawk, witnessed Megumi conjure the most colossal explosion this side of the universe. The blast cleared Kazuma of all suspicion and earned him a letter of gratitude from the town for taking down a demon bigwig. Darkness, battered but not broken, received a new suit of armor since her old one had gone up in smoke. She was pretty banged up but was saved by Aqua's healing magic. Everyone decided to drop the formalities and address Darkness by her real name, which turned her beet red. Kazuma's debts were wiped clean, and he found himself with a cool 40 million heiress. Overwhelmed by his newfound wealth, Kazuma celebrated like a kid in a candy store, complete with silly dances and everything. After claiming their reward, their supplies magically reappeared, and they came to a startling realization. Their friend Wiz, the pawn shop owner, was also associated with the Demon King. With a heavy heart, they decided to pay Wiz a visit to break the news of their dear friend Vanir's demise. Little did they know, they were in for a mind-boggling surprise. As they pushed open the door to Wiz's shop, they were met not by Vanir's ghost but by the very much alive Vanir himself. The shockwave of this revelation hit them like an earthquake measuring 9.9 on the Richter scale. This encounter also triggered a flood of guilt in Darkness's mind for her involvement in Vanya's apparent death, which left her feeling utterly embarrassed. Kazuma, ever the comforting soul, attempted to soothe her frazzled nerves, intrigued and baffled by Vanya's return from the brink of explosion. Kazuma couldn't resist asking the obvious question, why was Vanya still alive? It turned out that Vanya had undergone a rebirth, signified by the Mark II on his mask. Rizz explained that Vanya had grown tired of his role as a commander and recognized Kazuma's unique status as someone from another world. Vanya proposed a lucrative business opportunity, import and export between their worlds. Kazuma's role was to handle the creation and development, while Vanya would manage manufacturing and distribution. The first product of this venture was the kotatsu he was currently lounging under. Their attempts to coax Vanya out of the kotatsu turned into a comedy of errors. Kazuma, sly as ever, used his freeze breath on Darkness's neck, making her act like a pregnant cat scratching someone. When Megumin tried to lift the blanket, he used his drain touch to give her a headache. All of this was a bluff to remind them not to underestimate the one who had defeated Vanya and other formidable foes. Aqua, hiding behind the sofa, observed Kazuma's wicked antics with a mix of fascination and fear. Suddenly, she felt an urgent need to use the bathroom and asked the others to carry her, declaring a temporary ceasefire. In a hilarious turn of events, they ended up picking up both Aqua and the kotatsu and tossing them out of the window. With their bizarre encounter behind them, Kazuma took his friends to a blacksmith shop, excited to show them a katana. To his surprise, no katanas were featured in any anime yet. The blacksmith, who had been learning forging skills from an old master, presented Kazuma with a full plate armor that left him thoroughly impressed. As he tried to put it on, his friends urged him to pose with a sword. But he found himself unable to move even an inch. His attempt to make a heroic exit resulted in a comedic mess, leaving everyone in stitches. Later, while dining at the guild, Megumin couldn't resist poking fun at Kazuma's short katana, likening it to an Asian. Kazuma's disappointment with the name Chunchumaru was palpable. He worried that if he were to defeat the Demon King, he'd be forever associated with this peculiar weapon, and his heroic legacy would be forever tarnished. Their next quest involved eliminating a group of lizard runners, but as always, Aqua managed to mess things up, drawing the attention of the entire lizard runner horde. Blaming Aqua for their predicament, the party was in disarray as they attempted to deal with the situation. Megumin stepped up to the plate but quickly ran out of stamina and got flattened, while Darkness also found herself underfoot. Amidst the chaos, Kazuma managed to snipe the Lizard King. But the queen dodged his arrow and lunged at him in midair. The queen met her demise, but not before crashing into Kazuma, causing him to break his neck and lose consciousness. In this strange state of unconsciousness, Kazuma encountered a peculiar younger sister of Aqua, who informed him about his friend's efforts to heal his broken body. As they finished healing him, they encouraged him to return to the land of the living. But Kazuma had other ideas. He expressed a desire to be reborn as a man with a younger stepsister and an older stepsister, hinting at newfound feelings for Eris. However, Megumin's peculiar actions scared him back into reality, and he urgently requested that Eris open the gate to send him back. With tears in their eyes, Darkness and Megumin bid Kazuma farewell, while Aqua, with her usual flair, told him not to ask any questions. As Kazuma returned to his mansion and stepped into the bath, he was in for yet another bizarre surprise. Written on his belly was a message that left him screaming in both shock and hilarity, the holy sword of Excalibur, humorously pointing toward his private parts. Kazuma and Aqua's sudden transformation into the epitome of politeness was like watching a penguin try to waltz, amusing and slightly unsettling. Megumi, in a nervous fit, couldn't help but say sorry for that embarrassing belly message she'd written for Kazuma. But oh boy, Kazuma's newfound niceness. It was as odd as a cat trying to meow like a dog, and it only made Megumi's spine shiver even more. She begged him to snap out of it, but he persisted in his overly courteous ways. And then, like a cherry on this bizarre cake, Darkness chimed in with tales of Kazuma's wicked revenge plot against her. You could almost see the imaginary villain mustache forming on Kazuma's face. Darkness, cheeks flushed like a tomato in a sauna, couldn't resist asking what diabolical plan Kazuma had in mind. Just when things couldn't get any weirder, there was a knock at the door. Kazuma assumed it was Megumi, but guess who waltzed in? None other than Vanya, the Chaos Merchant himself. This surprise guest sent Aqua into a verbal fireworks display. It was like watching two cats trying to out-hiss each other. Kazuma, in a moment of genius, created a clone of himself, dodging Aqua's attack like a ninja. After the verbal battle royale, they switched gears and started discussing business deals. Vanya, the money maestro, reviewed Kazuma's proposals, dangling a patent worth 300 million and a monthly royalty of 1 million. Aqua and Darkness, with dollar signs in their eyes, couldn't resist joining the negotiation party. Vanyar, with the grace of a dancing elephant, gave Kazuma some time to mull it over. Meanwhile, Megumi, the valiant soul, tried to stir their heroism spirits. But it was like trying to teach calculus to a squirrel. Her words fell on deaf ears. Darkness, on the other hand, was calculating how much of a scoundrel Kazuma could become with each passing moment. They eventually settled on a trip to Reincarnated, the hot spring haven, and both Kazuma and Aqua were game. They packed their bags, eagerly waiting for Darkness and Megumi. In a visit to Vanyar about the hot springs trip, he suggested bringing along Wiz. But here's the kicker, Wiz started fading away like Marty McFly in Back to the Future. And what did Kazuma do? He jokingly grabbed Darkness by the neck, as if she were a chicken ready for dinner, and used his drain touch to revive Wiz. As Darkness came to, she saw Kazuma being whacked like a pinata at a birthday party. Seated in the wagon, they decided to settle things with a game of rock, paper, scissors. But Kazuma seemed to have a supernatural connection to victory, like a professional rock, paper, scissors champion. Aqua's frustration was brewing like a storm, leading to a showdown between her and Kazuma. The rest of the group watched in awe, like spectators at a gladiator match, as Aqua fumed in the back seat. As their journey continued, some monsters got attracted to the metal in Darkness's armor. The team sprang into action, with Darkness facing off against Kite Hawks. The hired adventurers cheered her bravery, while Kazuma struggled not to burst into laughter. One of them used bind magic on the Hawks, but Darkness seemed oddly delighted, reveling in the pain. Kazuma had to apologize to the adventurers for their rather unique Crusaders' antics. A thrilling speed game was underway, where competitors charged headlong at an obstacle at full speed, only dodging at the very last second to demonstrate their courage. Darkness, ever passionate about putting herself in harm's way, eagerly awaited the moment when the speeding Hawks would narrowly miss her. As they soared above her at the last possible moment, she couldn't help but feel a teasing sensation, intensified by Aqua's blessing magic. While the other adventurers tried to fend off the Hawks, Kazuma asked if there was a nearby cave. Megumi and Aqua opted to ride in the wagon, while Darkness, with a rather unusual request, asked Kazuma to tie her with a rope and drag her, essentially attempting to break every bone in her body. Unbeknownst to her, a group of Hawks was irresistibly drawn toward her. While the other wagons made their escape, their wagon continued toward the cave, with Darkness deriving pleasure from the pain she was enduring. Aqua and the others looked on with sarcastic eyes, wondering why Kazuma was subjecting her to this ordeal. As the Hawks closed in, Wiz came to their rescue, using her swath magic to divert the Hawks' attention. Darkness was pushed to her limit, and Kazuma requested support magic from Aqua. The cave was finally in sight, and with a sharp turn, Kazuma threw Darkness at the cave's entrance, causing one of the Hawks to leap over her and enter the cave. Megumi seized the opportunity and unleashed her explosive magic, eliminating the threat. As night fell, the cavern leader praised their bravery, but Kazuma couldn't shake the guilt he felt for causing the trouble. When they were offered a reward, he awkwardly declined, both he and Darkness shedding tears of remorse for the ordeal. The next morning, Kazuma found himself fixing Darkness's breastplate while Aqua demonstrated her magic skills. However, their peaceful rest was interrupted when Aqua's holy aura attracted zombies to their location. Kazuma felt even more guilty for causing trouble once again, and as the entire cavern awoke to the zombie threat, they joined forces to defend themselves. Aqua, in particular, had an eerie and unsettling reaction, laughing wickedly and turning the zombies into undead. The cavern residents praised her once more, unaware that she had been the root cause of the problem in the first place. Outside their mansion, Union waited for Megumi every day with new challenges, but no response came from within. Meanwhile, our adventurers had arrived in the beautiful city of water, a place where elves and dwarfs coexisted. They discussed the city's attributes and decided to disembark. As they stepped down from their wagon, Aqua informed them that this city was the home of the Axis Church, the very faith she had blessed. Kazuma was worried about encountering more eccentricities like Aqua within the church's followers. Some Axis Church priests approached them, but they quickly escaped and booked a room at an inn, fearing that Aqua might stir up some trouble. Kazuma's worries proved to be valid when Aqua, accompanied by Megumi and Darkness, ventured out to visit the Axis Church. Along the way, they encountered a lady who initially flirted with Kazuma but soon launched into a toxic preaching session. Darkness attempted to calm the lady by revealing her pendant of Eris, but this only infuriated the lady, who spat in disrespect of Eris. Kazuma explained that Axis and Eris churches were not on good terms, but her spitting strangely triggered Darkness's pleasure, leaving everyone bewildered. As they continued their exploration of the city, they came across another priest who pretended to be harassed by so-called Eris followers aiming to defame Eris. Awkwardly, Kazuma and Darkness chose to ignore the situation and tried to walk away, but the lady followed them, offering a joining letter for the Axis Church. As she showed her pendant, they walked away, once again spitting and turning on Darkness. Kazuma gazed at her hopelessly. Their encounters with various preachers left them feeling sick, and they sought refuge in a bar. The waiter quickly discerned that Darkness was associated with the Eris cult and handed a drink to Kazuma while serving Darkness in a rather degrading manner, even giving her a bone and a dog bowl. Surprisingly, Darkness seemed to relish being treated poorly and asked Kazuma if they could stay there. In a nearby alley, they encountered a young girl who tripped and fell. As they helped her and tended to her wounds, she asked Kazuma for his name, seemingly the only person in the city not talking about the Axis Church. However, her request for his name turned out to be an Axis Church joining form, causing Kazuma to lose his patience and clear the paper into pieces. Enraged by his encounters at the Axis Church, Kazuma stormed into the church, determined to speak to the person in charge. To his surprise, he found that the person in charge was also a rather eccentric girl. Kazuma didn't want to resort to violence, so he asked her if a magical girl and an archpriest had visited the church. In response, she pointed to a trembling and fearful Megumi in the corner, which shocked Kazuma. Outside, children were pelting Darkness with rocks, and to her delight, she found pleasure in their actions. Kazuma asked her to remove her Eris pendant, but she refused. Meanwhile, Aqua found herself in the confession chamber, fully immersed in her character. Kazuma tried to talk to her, urging her to control her followers, who were becoming a nuisance for tourists. Aqua, still deep in character, demanded that he leave. However, just as he was about to exit, he pretended to have a confession. Piquing Aqua's curiosity, she wanted to hear what he had to say, but instead, he confessed to drinking her favorite wine, breaking her favorite cup, and seeking another priest, all of which infuriated her. She grabbed him by the neck and of course has a fit, and Kazuma had to work hard to calm her down. In the confession chamber, an elderly individual confessed that a portrait of Eris was seducing him, with its large breasts being particularly alluring. Aqua advised him to like smaller breasts and love anyone except for demons, offering a bizarre solution that made little sense, much like her own existence. As they returned home, Megumi appeared depressed, and Darkness expressed a desire to go sightseeing the next day as well. Kazuma announced his intention to take a bath 3 times, but no one responded, leading him to believe he was being deliberately ignored. As he entered the bath, his lustful gaze made an elf girl who was also in the mixed bath uncomfortable. Another man, who was equally tired of Axis preachers, was present in the bath as well. Just as they were starting to relax, the preachers appeared, attempting to sell them soap. As Kazuma relaxed again, he overheard Megumi and Darkness talking negatively about him, fully aware that he would hear them in the mixed bath. However, when they realized he wasn't listening, they started speaking highly of him, even adopting a seductive tone, which tempted him to peek. As he peered through a hole, Megumi gestured, and Darkness punched him hard, sending him tumbling into the pool. They began throwing things at each other, with Megumin even tossing Chamusuke, leaving Kazuma feeling sorry for the unfortunate creature for having such a wild owner. In the evening, Aqua was crying in Wiz's lap, but her tears were causing pain to the kind-hearted Wiz. She had been kicked out of the church because, due to her presence, the hot bathwater had inexplicably turned cold. Aqua had a conspiracy theory that the Demon King was behind the cold hot springs, and she sought their help. However, they refused her request, deeming it too late. Megumi and Kazuma were enjoying the pleasant weather when they were startled by Axis preachers, who frightened them. As they tried to escape, Kazuma witnessed another person who was also fed up with Axis preachers and angrily threw something into the river. It turned out to be Wiz, who approached Kazuma and informed him that she had recovered. Meanwhile, Aqua was addressing a huge crowd about her conspiracy theory involving the Demon King. 2 Axis church priests disparaged her as a pain in the butt who was turning hot springs into hot water. The crowd grew furious and began protesting, rejecting her claims that she was Aqua, the goddess of water. Even a child preacher called her a liar, which broke her heart. Later that night, back at the inn, she was crying and throwing tantrums while they tried to comfort her. In the distance, they could hear the protesters chanting against Aqua, holding fire sticks and Axis cult banners, as they referred to her as a witch. They hightail it out of the inn and dive into a sketchy alley like they're auditioning for a hide-and-seek championship. But lo and behold, they stumble upon her again. Panic stations. They make a daring escape to the local church, but the bouncers at the door are like, "Sorry, you ain't on the guest list." She tries to sweet-talk her way in, but let's just say her charm didn't get an invitation. Then, out of nowhere, our hero Kazuma steps up to the plate and drops the bombshell that Darkness is basically nobility, like the posh dustiness family kind. He even pulls out the old show us your pendant trick, and Darkness is like, no way, Jose. But Aqua and Megumin don't take no for an answer and practically drag that pendant out of her, while Wiz watches this whole circus in pure awkward disbelief. Finally, they're allowed in, but Darkness is not happy about it. Kazuma, the smooth talker he is, showers her with compliments, and she's about as easy to convince as a cat is to chase a laser pointer. Inside the church, they witness a rogue pipe recklessly dumping contaminated water into the hot spring. The poor victim from earlier is just standing there, and Kazuma, in his chivalrous frenzy, thinks he's about to take a dive into the spring of no return. But as he approaches, he realizes this guy's the real polluter. Wiz identifies him as Hands, but he's playing the whole who, me game. Wiz even tries to chat him up, but Kazuma steps in, katana drawn, and Megumin summons her trusty Chunchinmaru. Just when things are getting heated, Megumin blurts out that this Hands dude is the head honcho of the Demon King's army, and Kazuma's face turns whiter than a ghost in a snowstorm. He starts stammering like he's auditioning for a comedy club, while the others spill the beans about Hands' menacing reputation. Kazuma's sweating buckets, his heart's racing a marathon. And then he bolts, apologizing like a marathon runner. As they sprint away, they find themselves caught between the angry protesters and Hands. Kazuma's genius idea. Abandon the water source and let the Axis cult fend for itself. Megumin's on board with this plan and dashes off to face Hands solo. The rest reluctantly follow her, and they're soon face to face with the slime monster. Hands nonchalantly reveals he devoured a real overseer, which sends Wiz into a furor. She decides to stay neutral to avoid collateral damage. She freezes Hands' hand, and as she approaches, he does the old trick of breaking his own hand and transforming into his true, terrifying form. He starts unleashing rapid attacks on everyone. Aqua rushes to save the spring, attempting to purify it. But the protesters, now realizing she was telling the truth, throw soap and detergent at Hands. Darkness warns them to stay clear, thinking it might be hazardous, and they respond by pelting her with soap. Megumin contemplates her signature explosion, but Aqua intervenes. The protesters try to replenish her stamina from afar, and Kazuma, the brains of the operation, notices some bones in the slime monster. This slime is a terrible digester. He asks Aqua if she can revive someone from bones, and Wiz can reduce its size. Kazuma then tells Megumin to prepare a small explosion. As the slime is about to attack Aqua, Kazuma distracts it while Megumin gets ready. The slime jumps after Kazuma off a cliff, reducing to bones. Megumin unleashes her explosive magic. Darkness saves a child from the poisonous slime. Wiz reduces its size by freezing it, but her powers run out. However, a small part of it still lives. Aqua swoops in and delivers a divine blow, struggling but fueled by the cheers of the protesters. With a final strike, she annihilates Hands. The battle's over, but Aqua's divine requiem turns the hot spring into boiling water. Everyone's pretty peeved at her now. They had to call a cart for their ride home, and they're welcomed back to Axel by a not-so-happy crowd. And wouldn't you know it, Union greets them at their mansion, and Megumin's already challenging her to a duel. Yep, make sure to push subscribe and let us know your thoughts.